Hello and welcome to the April 25th Planning Board meeting. It is 7 o'clock and we will start off by taking a roll call of Planning Board members and we'll go down the list. So Mark.
Here.
Rob is not here yet, but will be joining.
Yep, he's coming in.
Oh, good. I'll come back then. Sue?
Here.
Linda?
Here.
And I can't see if Rob is on now.
Yeah.
Rob, are you there? Maybe.
Muted.
Rob, can you hear us?
Yeah, there he is. There he is.
Second my audio.
There we go.
There you
Okay.
go.
And then Andrew Boardman may be joining us a little bit later, and Haley Overdahl is not able to attend tonight. Okay, let's jump into this. First item of the agenda is definitive subdivision public hearing for 48Y Fitchburg Turnpike, parcel number 3419. Who do we have?
All the board is doing is accepting the withdrawal without prejudice for the definitive subdivision plan.
Did we get it? I'm looking at an old
Agenda.
agenda then.
It's not specified on the agenda. I just got the withdrawal request.
Oh, okay. All right,
So
then I'm
that's why
I'm not crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
no,
Shall
that's
I
why
make that motion?
Yes, please.
I move that the planning board accept the withdrawal without prejudice for the definitive subdivision plan application of Quarry North Road LLC at 48Y Fitchburg Turnpike, parcel number 3419.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
Thank you. And I will go down the line in favor. Linda,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Sue,
Aye.
Rob,
Yes.
and not seeing Andrew yet. I'm also a yes. Did we need to vote on that?
Yes.
I jumped to no vote, but I was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
right.
you do have to vote.
I did if they're removing themselves. Okay, so now I can go back to the our 7:05 business. We're running 2 minutes ahead, which is also a request for a continuance to the May 9th meeting. What time are we going to put that at?
So since this is just a recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals, the chair can just continue the discussion to May 9th at 7:30.
All right, then I will continue. I will continue it to May 9th at 7:30 then.
Perfect. At this point, you can.
Yeah, should we do something else since it's
Yep.
it's far enough out from 7:10?
Yep. So you can, I have the planning board report for town meeting. So for Article 33, the motion, the recommendation is that the planning board recommend affirmative action on Article 33 for the reasons explained in the warrant. And then the motion is Mr. Bosdet moves that the town take affirmative action on Article 33 as printed in the warrant. This will require a 2/3 vote. For Article 34, after the public hearing, there were a couple comments raised, and one by a select board member about the select board issuing different licenses and permits for mobile food trucks. So I did check in with the town manager and also town council, and there will be two sections, two amendments to the article that would be part of the motion to add after the select board. So that's in item A, select board or their designee.
Mhm.
And then in item C, oh, and I gotta fix the numbering.
Oh.
Item, so that should be D,
Yeah,
and also add or their designee. And then to address a comment also raised by a select board member about having food trucks parked in his driveway. Touched base with town council and agreed that adding a mobile food establishment may conduct business on private property for a private event for the property owner or tenant and their invitees. So that just makes it a little bit more clear that you
Yeah.
can't have your buddy's food truck park in your driveway and they can conduct business for the general public.
I see a teensy little punctuation problem. Should I
Okay.
email you about it or
No,
should I raise
you
it now?
You can just tell me now.
Okay, under Article 34, item C, up, other item C, the first one,
Yep,
where it
right
says
here.
in section, nope. The one at the top of the
above
page.
number 1.
Oh, up here? Yeah.
Yeah, up there, where it says in section 5.5.6, open paren D, close paren, there should be a colon after the close
Oh, and that
paren.
should not be a 5, that should be a 4.
Oh, well, then I'm glad I brought it up because I didn't even
Mm.
notice that one. So just add a colon like in A and B
Yeah,
after yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
So we have A, B, C.
Picky, really? Why can't we have 2 Cs? Oh, and now you're getting problems with whether it's boldface or not.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay,
So we have A, B, C, D. Okay, E, F. All right, I will take one more look at this tomorrow, but I think we're good.
good.
Okay. And then for Article 35, just the explanation why the planning board is not moving Article 35.
Yep.
Do you want me to make it bigger?
No.
Mark, do
What's that?
you want me to make it bigger?
No, I'm fine. No, I
Oh.
can see it. Thank you.
Okay, okay.
It's tough to get old. So,
So pursuant to Chapter 48 of the Zoning Act, the board does need to move and vote to accept this report and recommendations and motions to town meeting.
I make a motion that we accept the annual town meeting planning board report as
Recommendations and motion.
recommendation and motion as written.
I second and notice that Andrew joined us.
Oh, I was just looking if he did,
Um,
but okay, I'll make a vote and then I'll note Andrew. Linda,
Yes.
Mark,
yes,
Sue,
Aye.
Rob,
Yes.
and Andrew. If he is there.
Yes.
All
Sorry,
right.
and thank you for noticing I was here.
No problem. And I'm also a yes.
Great. And it's now
It
7:10.
is now 7:10. All right, so we can move on to our 7:10 PM business, which is site plan review for public hearing for 794 Elm Street, parcel 1899, -1. And who do we have?
Good
to
evening.
represent that?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Brian Levy, counsel for the applicant.
Perfect. Floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brian Levy from Beveridge and Diamond for MAP Holdings. On the line with me tonight are the client, Mark and Megan Page are here. Our project engineer, Eric DeBrule from Bowler Engineering. Our traffic engineer, Bob Michaud from MDM Traffic Engineering. And Jason Scott from QSR&R Architects. This is an application for site plan approval for the Duncan at 794 Elm Street. We have a request also for a waiver from 7734 for 2 tandems parking spaces in the rear that will be employee spaces controlled by the manager. The plan is to renovate the existing building, which is the Asian Gourmet building, and modify the parking layout and basically transform what was an 85-seat restaurant into a 34-seat restaurant with 14 seasonal outdoor seats on a new porch. The application was filed on February 16th, 2023, and we had our first session with you folks on March 21. Since that last meeting, everybody's been very busy on the project team and on the Concord staff, going back and forth with documentation. We have been working to address the comments made by the planning board last time, plus all the numerous written reports that we've received from staff. We've made several revisions to the project in response to those staff comments. At this point, we also have what I would call, for lack of a better word, some staff sign-offs subject to permit conditions from CPW Engineering, CPW Water and Sewer, the Public Health Director, Fire Department, and also the NRC has indicated that if all goes well, tomorrow night they will close the hearing and vote to issue us an order of conditions. So we're making good progress. We agree with the town planner's recommendation and we are hopeful that the board will agree to order or request that the planner prepare a draft decision for vote at the next meeting on May 9th. So for tonight, what is it that we want to do? With that overview, I wanted to do sort of 4 quick things and then turn it back over to you folks. Number 1, I wanted to ask Eric DeBrule to share his screen to show you the site plan and just walk you very quickly through the revisions to the plans, which you all have. And then I would ask our project architect, Jason Scott, to review the exterior building lighting, which did not come in until yesterday, I believe, to go over that with you folks, make sure you're satisfied with that. And then I want to ask Bob Michaud to address some proposed conditions related to MassDOT. And then Mark and I would like lastly to address the board about conditions related to parking. So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, we'll turn it over to Bowler Engineering.
Yes, that's fine. Just 1 second. I want to let everybody know if you are on here, please mute yourself unless you are presenting. Thank you.
Awesome. For the record, Eric DeBrule with Bowler Engineering. I will attempt here to share my screen.
Before Eric gets into it, let me just ask as a procedural matter whether Mark has Mullenized himself for tonight's hearing. Do we know if that's the case? Because
Sorry,
what?
who, Mark Giddings?
yes, he was not at the last hearing.
Oh, you're muted, Mark. So the question, Mark, is whether you watched the video from the meeting
Yes.
on the 21st.
Yes.
So thank you, Brian. Mark, I will, Heather will send you, it's just a quick form that you need to sign, and it gets submitted with the town clerk.
Thank you very much.
Assume the site plan is sharing right now.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So as Brian mentioned, we did revise the plan since you've last seen it. primarily to address planning board comments, staff comments, as well as some of the comments received at the first Conservation Commission meeting. The planning board comments were to add employee-only parking signs. So we've added that in front of the trash enclosure to ensure that the applicant has access to those parking stalls as needed to remove trash when the trash truck comes. We've reduced the light temperatures for the 3 lights along the frontage as well as the one in the rear to 2,700 Kelvin. They're previously, I believe, proposed at 4,000. And that was, I believe the comment was just to be environmentally sensitive. So we were able to do that, and we feel comfortable with the light levels from an operational perspective, as well as to be friendly to the resource area. And then finally, we added a EV charging station at this parking space at the rear, per the request of the board at the last meeting. Relative to DPW comments, or I'm sorry, Concord Public Works comments, most of their comments revolved around improving stormwater, and we had a couple of meetings with them. And again, at this point, have a clean comment letter from that department, but effectively, if you recall, the existing stormwater system functions with 2 existing dry wells, one at the north of the property at the rear in the parking lot, and one towards the west. What we've done is we've added 2 new catch basins for additional treatment before the water is infiltrated in those dry wells. So one new deep sump and hooded catch basin here that then ties into that dry well. And then again, in the westerly parking lot area, new catch basin with deep sump and hoods connected to the dry well. We also tied in at their request a roof leader that picks up some of the roof runoff, the clean roof runoff, and pipe that directly in to infiltrate that into that system. And the last piece was to add some riprap at some of the outlet areas, just for to mitigate any the runoff and sedimentation that could occur by adding riprap in those areas. Those were the main comments. Their conservation asked for a temporary stockpile area, which you'll find on our erosion control plan. If I can flip to it. We don't believe we'll need it for long, if at all, but we've located that temporary stockpile area outside of any of the resource buffer areas, as shown on the screen here. So again, those were the high level comments. I think our plan has picked up all comments that we're aware of at this time from staff and planning board, as well as Conservation Commission at this time. So I will turn it over to Jason to speak architecture.
Share here real quick. Excuse me. So at the last meeting, and I think on the request letter, it was asked to talk about a little bit on the exterior lighting proposed for the building. We're really not proposing a lot here. We want to keep it as minimal as possible, but still keep the building and the perimeter safe and welcoming to the public. So the goal will be underneath of the patio, the outdoor seating area, we'll have some recessed LED can lights. There'll be about 9 of those kind of running along the perimeter. So they'll have, again, they'll be running down the middle of one side and down the middle of the other side, evenly spaced, about 6-7 foot on center. So that will light this outdoor patio area. Additionally, on the rear of the building, just for safety, we've proposed some exterior wall packs, again, LED wall packs that we get mounted on the building. And the goal of those is really just to kind of light the perimeter up for safety. We want to make sure that if you walk around the perimeter of the building at night, you still have some sort of light against the building. So again, there's a safe walk path if needed. Additionally, we did the same on the stairwell side of the building. This is the secondary means of exit for the second floor. So we do have a wall pack on the back of the building that will help light the wall around the building, and then also one on the stairwell. This one will help to light the stairwell, again, for egress. At the top of the stairwell above the door, it's hidden by the roof. There will be a emergency exit light. That light would only come on in the event of power loss. Otherwise, that light is off. And we do have the same thing on our side door. There will be an emergency light above that door that would only come on in the event of power loss. And then lastly, we do have a small wall pack that would be going on the front of the building just to kind of light up this front grass area. Again, the goal being that we've got a little bit of a lit perimeter around the building just for safety. And then the main lighting is under the covered porch to, again, bring the customers to the entrance vestibule and give a safe area for seating at night out there. We did provide the cut sheets for all the fixtures proposed. It was mentioned that the desire I've heard is to be at 3,700 Kelvin, or sorry, 2,700 Kelvin or 3,000. Absolutely, we can do that. So we can modify these so that all the fixtures will be 2,700 Kelvin. They're all available on that. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Brian, unless there were any questions about the lighting or what was proposed.
I do have a question about, oh, I see Elizabeth has a hand up. Is it all right if I just ask this question about the wall packs real quick? Okay. What, with the height on those, what is the light throw for those? Like how far out from the building?
So these are adjustable.
Illuminating?
So we can actually adjust them so that the throw is minimized. And they're not the type of wall packs that most people are used to, where they are facing away from the building.
Oh, yeah.
They actually just face straight down. These are generally the same lights. If Duncan does a brand new ground up site, these are the same lights they use on the light poles for the parking lot, because they can keep the same type of fixture, but adjust the angle of the light and the depth the light is throwing. So it keeps the light fixtures uniform across the property, but allows a little bit more control in the areas we need it.
So is that graphic there, is it showing that basically it's just under 45 degrees out from the light? Is that what that's showing? The light throw there is 45 degrees out from the light itself?
Yes, approximately. And that, again, that's going to be based on the height. So as you get closer, that light throw is going to get a little bit shallower, but it will be kind of close to that 45 degree.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Nope.
I think there was another question.
Yeah.
No, Elizabeth. And now Sue.
So on that same light fixture, that's if the light fixture is at a 90 degree, correct?
Yeah, so this is if it is actually wall mounted. So there's a little side view here. I don't know if you can see it. That would be the profile when it's mounted on the building. So it is mounted at 90 degrees.
Okay, so these lights fixtures will be at 90 degrees.
Correct. Yeah. So you're not. It's called a wall pack, but it's not the wall pack that we're all used to, where it's got the
No,
eye.
I understand
really
that.
throw it out.
Some of the issues that with adjustable light fixtures is that they get mounted at 90 degrees, and then 6 months later somebody goes out and adjusts the light fixtures so they're no longer at 90 degrees.
These are not that type with the adjustment. You don't actually adjust the angle of it. What it is on the top of it, when you adjust it, it changes the lens pattern. So it actually then reduces the throw or changes the angle. The
Okay.
fixture stays at 90 at all times. It's the actual control of the internal adjustment that changes the throw, as it would be.
Okay. And then in your email, you said there were 10 recessed lights, but tonight you said 9.
It looks like it's being 9 to 10, just kind of depending on the spacing on that patio area. It's one of those that what I always do is we do have Villa do an interior photometric for us to make sure we meet the health code for foot candles, and they will check the patio as well. So it might be to make sure we got the right foot candles at the door. It might be that we have 6 along this way and 4 along the side. So that's why I said it could be 10. We might be able to reduce it down to 9.
Okay. And then that was specifically the other question I had. Generally, the board gets a photometric plan for their for lighting, and I'm concerned with the level of lighting, given that your canister fixtures, you have them at what is it, 1,000 lumens at 4,000 K as far as the color, which I think you said that can be changed to 2,700.
Yeah, the options here are 27, 3,000, 35, and 4. So we can absolutely go with the 2,700.
So, and then I looked through the cut sheets, and what was not highlighted was what the foot candle would be based on the height. I imagine the height is going to be at least 9 to or probably like 12 feet.
It's probably gonna be somewhere around 9 to 10 feet, I think, with the vestibule, the way we have it looking right now. Might be a little bit higher than that. And I'd have to check. I don't know that they have what the foot candle is at that point. I apologize. We were told that there was a site photometric, and we did not realize that the additional building lighting was an item that they needed. And yesterday we tried to get everything we could pull together for this, and that's where you have as much as you were able to gather in that time. So I apologize.
Do you know if those canister lights are dimmable?
There's 2 different lumen options. I'd have to confirm with the vendor. I believe most of the recessed can lights are dimmable. I don't know this one for sure, so I need to confirm that. But it does have a 750 lumen option instead of the 1,000, so we could dial it down. Again, the goal is not that we're going to be pushing light out from under the patio, but we want that patio to, again, kind of pull you in a little bit with some of that light, because there's not a lot of other elements to the building. Once you're parked, there's not a lot of the accent lighting that Duncan would normally do. We're trying to stick with the architecture and the feel of the area, so we're trying to minimize as much as possible.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, and sorry, Linda and Rob and Sue. I did have one other item before I forget. There is somebody who is moving forward looking at the adjacent property and redeveloping the adjacent property. Part of that redevelopment would definitely include upgrades to the existing electrical utility, which I know currently the service runs from Elm Street oddly to the back of the adjacent property, and then service to this building is off that pole from the adjacent property. More than likely, with the redevelopment of the adjacent property coming off Elm Street in the same location, it would probably go to a pad mount transformer and then go underground to the new building. So I will send you an email tomorrow with who you can contact, because they are looking at closing off that existing driveway right there that you're looking at. Yeah. And the utility comes off that pole. So you would probably, there's going to be a pad mount transformer that, is somewhere right, well, probably over to the right a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe over here somewhere.
Yeah, so I will send you an email with their contact information, because more than likely they can work with you to lay the underground conduit now when you dig up the pavement before you repave, and they can put in the conduit and stub off so that they can just, pull in new electrical to the service and not have you rip up or go overhead. They can easily have it go underground.
Okay, yeah, we'll definitely have to look at that with the civil engineer team from Bowler, because I do know we have some, I can even see here, we've got a lot of manholes out on that side of the property, so I'm sure it's not gonna be a straight shot, but we'll work with them and see how we can get something routed over there.
Okay, I will send that to you, to Brian tomorrow.
Thank you.
I see we still have some questions.
Yep, go ahead, Sue.
Yes, I've got a couple of questions. One is about the wall pack fixtures and where they throw light to. I can see that there's very little space on the west side of the plan before the edge of the property, but the wall packs appear to be relatively high, and I just can't tell whether they will be casting light onto the nearby Assabet River and wetlands riparian area or not. And the same is true as well for the rear of the building, although there's slightly more room in that case. So I sure would appreciate some clarity on that point. And my second question is, it appeared to me on the cut sheet that you had circled a MLED 1-G-WP fixture of some sort, and I can't tell what the proposed use of that is, whether that's the wall pack light or what, because as pictured, it appears to spill light all over the place.
Correct. This is the emergency light. So this is the emergency exit light that goes over the doors. So it absolutely will. The second power goes out, it's a floodlight. It is meant to light that exit up so that you can see it from across the street.
Sure, but
it's
emergency purposes only.
But yeah, and again, that's the only time those lights will ever come on, and they have a battery backup. So after, I think it's like 8 to 10 hours, they just turn off if power hasn't been restored at that point. But yeah, the location of those two lights is going to be over the two exit doors we have. One of them would be at the top of the stairwell. So there'd be one above that in case power goes out. That should light the whole stairwell up. And then when that light's not on, that's the purpose of that wall pack. That wall pack's not really there to throw light off the property. It's to safely light this stairwell in an even fashion.
Well, I understand that, but I can't tell from the plans whether that is in fact what happens or whether it will cast additional light off the property.
Yeah, and I'll have to do is I'll have to talk with Bowler to see if we can get something, because again, where that light is in the relation to the property, I know that line is close, but those are, from my experience, the angle is not heavy off of them, so you're not getting a lot of throw. It's not designed to be that way, but we'll have to get some information for you. And Sue, to answer the question there, the other emergency light is on this other side exit door, and that's the door in and out of the kitchen. So again, that excuse me, that light will only come on whenever there's a emergency power failure situation.
Okay, thanks. I look forward to clarity on the wall packs.
Thank you, Sue. Linda?
Yes, you mentioned that the accent lighting or signage, I'm not sure, will not be the traditional Dunkin' lighting, but you haven't given us any idea as to what that might be constituted of. So could you give us your thinking at this point?
Yes, I apologize. On the last hearing call, we had put a little graphic up here. So the thought was that on this end of the building, it would get the DD, which is just the Dunkin' letters. They're internally illuminated, and they would just get mounted on the side of the building. So again, you'd have something there that would be DD, and then again on the last call, there would be a Dunkin' sign that would just be the word Dunkin' mounted up on the center of the roof line, kind of there. That would be the only signage that we're proposing for the building. What I meant by the accent lighting is on new ground up Dunkins, they have orange canopies that are the classic Dunkin' orange. There is LED up and down strip lighting that kind of goes around these accent bands that run on all sides of the buildings. It very much is a freestanding restaurant feel. And none of that felt appropriate to try and bring over here. The orange canopies didn't feel anything like it would fit with the architecture, the nature of the area or the building. So we really wanted to try and stick with putting on the Dunkin' elements that we knew the brand and we would want to have to draw the customers in, but not adding a lot of the extra accents and kind of the new age colors and lighting that they've started to do.
So in terms of the quantity of lighting, however you want to quantify it, how bright would that be? Obviously, it's going to be bright enough, I would guess, just for people to identify it at some distance on Route 2 or on Elm Street, but what can you tell us about that?
About the internally illuminated signage?
Is that what both elements will be?
Yeah, so this would just be the word Dunkin', and the other side would just be the word, would just be 2 letters, DD. Let me see if I have an image of that for you that I can share real quick. Give me 1 second here. So this has been an image that they added some night elements to, but you can see the Dunkin' on the one side of the building, and this is a very similar architecture style to the building here in Concord. This happened to be a new ground up. We had to do something that was more historic, so this was what met the criteria, but still would quantify for a ground up restaurant. So the DD that I was talking about is pictured up here on top of the faux chimney, and the Dunkin' is on the other side. So we'd only be proposing putting the Dunkin' and the DD. The Elm Street location is not a drive-through, so there'd be no additional signage for that.
Right.
So that's where, again, the main brick face here, that would be the Dunkin', just like you're kind of seeing on this side of the building. And then facing towards the parking lot, this side of the building, that would just have this DD. This is much larger. I think this is a 48-inch letter. Ours would probably only be a 24, so it'd be about half that size.
And that would be illuminated only during your hours of operation?
Correct. And I'd have to check with Mark and Megan. I know some of the franchisees, if it's daytime, the signage, it's kind of reflective, so they don't always even need to have it on the daytime. But a lot of them are photocell based. So if it's overcast, the signage is on to help light it up. But as long as it's new, it's pretty shiny. It looks pretty bright during the day with just the sunlight.
Have you reviewed the sign bylaw to make sure that they're compliant?
So
We
that
have-
was the next thing I was gonna say. We're actually just the architect. We're not even applying for the sign permit. Mark and them have their own separate sign vendor that would be looking through all that criteria. So this is just what we are thinking, proposing. If we cannot get both signs, the Dunkin' sign is all that we would need. But the goal would be to try and get a DD and a Dunkin' on here just as the minimum.
Yeah, so I didn't want to interrupt or cut off Linda. I was happy to have Jason, try to answer her questions to give a preliminary idea, but we're really not here tonight, seeking signage approval.
Well, if the interior lit signs that you want are not permitted, and you want to do like an above gooseneck sign, if you add more than 10% as far as exterior lighting, that brings you back for site plan review for the lighting. And I don't, if it can be addressed now in the next 2 weeks, I'd rather it be included now and not have you have to come back for an amendment to your site plan just for lighting for signs.
Okay, thank you for pointing that out, and
Yeah.
we will look at that more closely.
Yeah, I just finally tracked it down under 4.a. Exterior illumination of signs shall be so shaded, shielded, or directed that they shall not reflect or shine on or onto neighboring premises or on into any public street, which could be a problem for an internally illuminated sign, but we'll let you go figure that out.
Thank you. Looks like we have one more question.
Okay, go ahead, Rob.
I think you hit a little bit on it with the, we talked about the signage, but the photo cell, are you proposing to put separate photo cells to, or do you have any location in mind for that photo cell yet? Are you gonna be able, controlling all the lighting, exterior lighting with one photo cell or multiple?
Generally, we've been doing most of the buildings with one photo cell, and that can handle all of the lighting. I've not figured out the best location for it here, but if we had to do 2 photo cells, we've done that. But the goal would be it's one photo cell, again, probably towards the customer side of the building, because again, that's the one that we are more concerned about, but have not dug into the location of it just yet.
Something else to think about in the sign bylaw, signs cannot be illuminated between the hours of 11 PM and 7 AM unless authorized by the Board of Appeals.
We're closing at 9. The sign will be off when we close.
Okay, well, if it's on a photo cell,
Yeah.
Well, we do, I'm sorry, photo cell and timer combo. So it's the
Okay.
photo cell with the
Okay.
timer. I'm sorry. Did not clarify that.
no, that's all right.
So before we turn it over to Bob, oh, I'm sorry, it looks like Rob still has a question.
No, I'm done.
Okay. Before we turn it over to Bob, I just wanted to mention, Mr. Chairman, last time you had requested an EV parking space, and I'm not sure whether Eric in his site plan review mentioned that there is one now on the site plan.
He did, and actually that was going to be one of my follow-up questions, but we were talking so much about exterior lighting and everything, and Jason was talking. I didn't want to bring that up just yet, but I guess now that you've mentioned it, I will. Can we bring up the parking plan just as it is? Can someone pull that up?
I can, I'll pull that up.
Yeah, so I see that it was added in the back, you said, in that that one turn off that, yep, right there. So has there been thought to what type, whether that's going to be like freely provided or a pay, like a paid partnership or something like that?
Mark and Megan, I believe that there's a Duncan program for this. Do you recall how that operates?
I don't have the information in front of me about how it operates. We've just been in contact. It's EV Go, I think was the name of the company, and that we're just in preliminary stages. They've worked with a lot of Duncans before, so we're just getting all the information on that.
So my suggestion would be maybe not to have it in the back space quite like that, and perhaps toward the front you have where the light pole is going to be. On the bottom right, basically. Yeah, you have a parallel parking spot off. Yep, right there. That off of that or next to that. Exactly. Yeah, something like that might be better placed, both in terms of lighting and sort of awareness of it, rather than in the back. But if you have a partnership with EVgo, they may have some say on that as well. I'm not sure what the arrangement is with Duncan for that.
We'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, and again, I think our thought process in placing it at the rear was just the distance to the electric, or we assume the electric utility room will be. We've got a lot of utilities, septic system components that we'll have to just kind of route around to get it to this location. So if we could keep it flexible, I certainly think we could have those conversations. And if we can locate it there, I think that's a great idea. But hopefully we can just keep it flexible to a space where, again, it's most amenable to get it installed.
Yeah, please, if you're able to find out more about what the requirements are with EVgo, that'd be good to know.
Great, okay. If I may, we'll turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Chair and board members.
We can lose the image on the screen. Thank you.
For the record, Bob Michaud with MDM Transportation Consultants. What I'd like to do is keep the transportation piece of this very simple. I think we've addressed, the departmental comments on the project. I think the remaining questions relate to our correspondence and coordination with MassDOT, which we did very early on. On November 21st of last year, we had a detailed consultation with the District 4 office, and it related to essentially 3 points that we wanted to make sure we understood and had confirmation of. First, that to identify any area roadway improvements that would affect the project or vice versa, that the project should be aware of during its planning. Secondly, on the need for a vehicular access permit, given the change in tenancy of the building, as opposed to the use itself. And thirdly, whether or not District 4 would be looking for any required modifications of the driveway. That meeting really informed what you see as the site plan now. And I'm pleased to report that District 4 acknowledged that there is no need for a vehicular access permit or application for this project. The use remains as a restaurant use. There's actually a net reduction in seats. There's no deficiency or requirement to modify the driveway itself. In the course of that discussion, we also understood and reviewed MassDOT's prior evaluation of the Route 2 signal at Baker Avenue Extension. In 2017, there was a road safety audit that was prepared there that we obtained, reviewed, and discussed with District 4, and they acknowledged that while that report exists and it does identify certain aspects of safety improvement that could be brought to bear there, that it exists independent of the project that you have before you now, and that MassDOT would really use that road safety audit to secure funds moving forward for longer term safety related improvements there that are independent of the project. They also further acknowledged that the project itself would have no bearing, a negative bearing on the findings or recommendations of that study. With that as background, I know that the Concord Public Works made comment acknowledging that any modifications to the driveway would require a vehicular access permit through DOT, and we acknowledge that we don't need one. We're not seeking one, nor are we being asked to seek one by district. So that's a given. Their other comment had to do with receiving some written correspondence from MassDOT having to do with the signing off on the project, essentially. And the November 21st meeting was specifically held for that purpose. And I can certify through my direct participation in that meeting, which involved the permits director, engineer, the projects engineer, and the district traffic engineer in their full view of the submitted traffic report, that there's no need to secure any formal written documentation from DOT. No, in fact, it is not customary for MassDOT to provide that kind of documentation. That's why we have those consultation sessions. I hope the board accepts my testimony in what we discussed with MassDOT on November 21st to be adequate for purposes of deliberation on the project. Outside of that, the only remaining issue had to do with the police department comment on the potential for reinforcing no parking restrictions on Elm Street. As the board is probably aware, the Elm Street ramp is only about 15 feet wide or so. It is not conducive to parking. I can't envision that anyone would want to or even be able to park along that stretch of Elm Street, certainly not without effort. But this applicant is committed to pursuing a non-vehicular access permit with DOT for purposes of placing no parking signs along its frontage. And to the extent this board sees that as an appropriate action, I think the applicant's willing to pursue that. There's no guarantee that DOT would allow those signs. Parking is not allowed on state highway by regulation. But this applicant will in good faith pursue that action. And to the extent DOT grants that, they would be willing to put in no parking signs along Elm Street. So those are the remaining issues as they relate to transportation. The project itself is really not likely to present a material consequence to traffic operations or safety in the area.
Thank you, Bob. I wanted to pause there for a minute. So the town planner's report suggests that there be a condition that as a precondition to starting any site construction that we secure this acknowledgement letter directly from MassDOT. And what we're hearing from Bob is that's not something that they do. So we don't want to have an approval that we can't use. And I'd like to hear from the board whether it is going to insist that we secure some sort of written documentation from MassDOT or whether we can rely on what Bob is telling us.
I see Elizabeth has her hand up, so let her respond for that part. Go ahead.
So I understand understanding the situation with MassDOT and what they will and won't do, but I also can I understand the position of CMLP engineering, and should in the future there be issues with the driveway, CMLP engineering will want something to fall back on. And basically what I would probably suggest, and I can, the board can discuss this and I can relay this to engineering, is to have Bob, whether there's an email that you can send District 4 saying, you know, this is what happened at that November meeting, and have them just acknowledge, you know, acknowledge even in an email that, yes, that is what the outcome of that discussion was. That should be sufficient. And understanding that their Mass District 4 is often reluctant to provide an actual letter, and the condition can be crafted in that manner, and within 2 weeks you may be able to even get an email response. They seem to be more inclined to just reply that yes, they agree, and that should be sufficient.
We could certainly endeavor to do that. I can send April Antonelli, who's the permits engineer that I had arranged that meeting, a recap of that meeting with a request of confirmation. In the absence of receiving that type of correspondence, we would hope to receive positive confirmation. But in the absence of that, there could certainly be a condition that cites all applicable access-related improvements that are subject to DOT shall be obtained, you know, by the applicant, right? So that's kind of a blanket way of acknowledging that, you know, this is state highway, that any modifications to the driveway would be subject to their purview and permit requirements. You know, that's certainly the type of condition that we would ordinarily see in a project like this. Simply is deferential to DOT, and it puts it in black and white, right? So if for some reason there's a modification that is happening and there wasn't a permit pulled or something along those lines, there'll be something for you to point back to as part of the condition. So that's another avenue that I would suggest might make sense.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would just suggest I will go back to engineering since that is their comment and their recommendation, and have them, you know, agree to something other than what's in their written comment letter.
I think that's a good idea. And also, Brian, I think if you wanted to go ahead and do what you were saying and reach out just basically, as you said, sort of recapping what you had, the discussion that you'd had, and see if you can get that, just so that's already going in the background as well.
Will do.
Thank you. The last item that we had was, again, from Elizabeth's report. There was a suggestion that there be a condition that the number of seats or the number of staff be reduced, or Mark be required to go sign up a lease with an off-site parking for some off-site parking spaces in the event that traffic ever backed up out onto Elm Street. And we wanted to talk to the board about this because it's not a condition that we think ought to be included. The zoning bylaw requires that we have 17 parking spaces for the project. We have 18. And the judgment was made probably through this planning board, through some study or recommendation from this board about what those parking ratios ought to be. Town meeting voted and approved those parking ratios. And I think we should, as an applicant and a property owner, a business person in the town, be able to rely on that. So we're providing a smidge more than the required parking. So I don't really see the need for there to be this sort of additional condition requiring Mark to reduce seats or reduce staff if all of a sudden cars go backing out onto Elm Street, because that shouldn't be the presumption. Reading the report, the community officer, the community protection officer, I forget what the person's title was, said that they had a fear or a concern that this might happen. But and I think Bob can speak to this. I don't think that the data backs that up, and that the traffic and the parking that's been provided is more than what's required under the bylaw. And then there's a separate issue here of sort of including as a permit condition a requirement that that the applicant go get something that he has no control over. So if an off-site property owner does not want to grant him the right to park his cars on their property, he can't get that. So that would be a condition that typically courts don't allow those types of conditions. So for all those reasons, and Mark, if you want to add anything, we would ask that the board not impose that condition.
Yeah, I could say, I've been in this business for 35 years. My wife and I are residents. We know the area really, really well. We run and operate all the Dunkins in Concord. This particular location is interesting because it is on the PM side of Route 2. And our peak time is between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. And during those particular hours, the majority of it is takeout, and our service times is under 2 minutes. And now with the app, it's really 30 seconds. You kind of walk in, get coffee, and leave. So what's nice about this location is we feel as though it's gonna be spread out throughout the day. And the people that come in to meet friends and have lunch or sit down, have a coffee at dinner, after dinner, it's actually gonna be, I think, the best utilization of the parking spaces and kind of how the business works together. So I don't see an issue with this at all. Like I said, we know our business really, really well, and I think it like I said, like Brian said, it's got 18 parking spaces. It only requires 17. So that would be my feedback.
Mr. Chairman, that's all we have for this evening.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's turn this over to the board. Are there questions or comments about sort of anything that's been said, or more specifically about this parking component, or in relation to MassDOT, anything like that?
Couple of comments, if I may.
Yeah.
You know, when you go to some of the other Dunkins, perhaps not the one by the Starbucks, but certainly the one in Acton that I drive by all the time, it isn't just cars that are pulled in there, it's school buses, it's trucks and things like that. And so I guess I do have a concern about the number of parking spaces and whether they'll be backed up onto Elm Street or not. Just a concern that I think, you know, I'd like you to respond to, okay? Any
Sure, I
thoughts?
I own that store in Acton, so I think you're referring at the buses and the size of the vehicles that use the particular Dunkin' Donuts, it's all predicated on the space. So
Right.
the buses go into 212 Main Street, which is inside a humongous plaza that Ace Hardware.
No, yeah, right.
Yeah, so this buses in this location, I just don't see it.
You know,
I mean, they don't pull into Thoreau Street, and this location would be the same. They do find their way into those big parking lots.
okay, all right. Because there's no room for them there, and they'd be backing up on Elm Street,
Yeah.
or they'd be parking in the paparazzi's parking lot, one or the other. Okay, you know,
Yeah, I don't think they would want to do that either.
so, okay, all right, that's fine. Thank you.
Any others? Good. Yeah, so regarding the parking request, I think you made some good points in there. And I'm curious to hear from other members of the board what their thoughts are in terms of the request from the community safety officer versus some of the comments made by Brian.
Well, since you asked for opinions, I don't think we really have a very good idea of how the site would be utilized being on Route 2 with its easy on, easy off access, but the zoning bylaw does specify required parking and the proposal does meet the
Yep.
requirements.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment if it meets the requirements and there's no. I don't see a reason to put a condition in place which would modify their business model based on a concern that parking will overflow possibly in the future if we don't have anything to really support that. It just seems unfair. That would be my take.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
I think if there's a problem, the police will get involved in it if it starts to back up on Elm Street or something like that, and they can deal with it down the road, that's all. I mean, they do meet
Just-
requirements, so.
What, just like the Starbucks?
Yeah,
But
I knew
nevertheless,
that
it does
was gonna
meet the
come up.
requirements.
That's not fair.
Extreme, that's an extreme example.
We don't
But-
talk
but-
about Starbucks.
But that's also not the operative question. It's
Yeah,
whether it
exactly.
meets the requirements.
That's
Well,
right.
I think perhaps the operative question is what we base our parking requirements on. And traditionally it's been seating. And so you would say, logically, fewer seats, less of a problem with parking. But given that I assume the turnover for the existing restaurant is nowhere near the turnover that it's going to be with this new restaurant. And so therefore is our metric, are we ignoring the fact that our metric is the wrong metric and that we need to be broadening the definition to some extent, just like we did with another application for parking, saying, we don't have to look at just, what the total number of students and teachers are or whatever. Maybe we need to relax things, but have a backup plan. Well, maybe we need to look at the conditions here that are potentially quite different. And, I am, I have some reservations and concerns that the volume and the in and out volume to that small amount of space with the small number of parking, where one of the spaces is handicapped. So you can say it's 19 minus 5, minus 1. It's just not a lot to put 100 or 130 visits in per hour. That's my thought. And again, trucks don't all have to be 18 wheelers. There are a lot of people who drive very large SUVs and very sizable trucks that think that they should be able to go into a Dunkin'. So I have some reservations. And I would not, like to compare it to another situation, but I would not like to create another situation that's similar, especially at, again, a very, we already know that is not the safest place for traffic in Concord. So, where's the tipping point?
So with respect to your point about the SUVs and larger cars, or if you want to call them, truck-like cars, again, the bylaw tells us what to do, and we're doing it in terms of the number of spaces, the size of the spaces. We're doing what the bylaws tell us to do. With respect to the notion that maybe we should adopt different metrics and look at different metrics other than seating, again, where the business is coming to you and trying to comply with your written rules and regulations that are there. I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe the situation that you're referring to, the other situation where you're sort of looking at other factors, implicated the Dover Amendment, which is a sort of a different type of analysis than you would apply here under the zoning bylaw. So I really think that there's a sort of a fairness quotient at play here, and that the applicant, any business, should be allowed to look at what the rules and regulations are and meet and in our case exceed them, and that should be deemed sufficient.
Andrew, I'm going to let Elizabeth jump ahead of you there. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Just for the board's information, two differences between this site and the other site that is a constant problem. One is actually the other site only has 11 spaces and 1 handicap space, and there's 2 businesses located in that location. So that is one factor. Also, the issue with the other location has to do with it's only 10 feet from a 4-way intersection. So that's another issue, and there is no ability for trucks to pull in, as we know, for deliveries. They park on Thoreau Street. So there are, I understand the board's hesitance, because it is a constant problem at the other site. But I do think there are some definite differences between the two.
But Elizabeth, one of the other differences is that there's parking on the streets around that location. So
No, there isn't.
Well, not immediately adjacent, but you could stop on many places on Thoreau Street and park your car and have an easy walk across the intersection. So, but you can't park on Elm Street and walk 100 yards to this location. So there is no buffer. Just to mention that.
So the one thing I would say, if we're gonna make a comparison, is sort of across from that, the space or the place that will not be mentioned is another Dunkin's with, I think they have, what, a dozen spaces at that Dunkin's location there.
No, they have a significant amount of parking in behind the
Well,
building.
that goes around the rear, but that most people are parking. My point was that at any given point during the day, and this is just around the corner from myself, that parking lot that is immediately in front of the Dunkin's that most people park in to just run in and out is not full. So
They have 15 parking spaces directly in front of the building.
yeah. So I'm just saying, for comparative reasons, that's a identical business by the same owners. That's right there in terms of the turnover that is seen there. So,
Except.
but I hear
that
your
it's-
point, Linda, that there is parking, further down on Thoreau Street that is available, and they also have the parking in the rear.
The tolerances here are, we've got what we've got, and we're not gonna have any, wiggle room.
Yeah, and not knowing what is going in where, potentially going in where the paparazzis is another factor. But at the same time, to your point, somebody cannot park on Elm Street. So if this was really going to be a problem, it's sort of unlike the other location that shall not be mentioned. There isn't that option, so it's sort of a self-correcting problem, because if you can't go there, you're not going to keep going there. It's going to be a problem for the business itself. And there's just not, again, like to what Elizabeth was saying, it's not right at a four-way intersection 10 feet off. It's a little bit different. But I definitely hear what you're saying in terms of, available space. Andrew.
One thing I would just came to mind when they talked about when it was mentioned other metrics we could use, and we've done this in other circumstances. Granted, I wasn't part of that discussion because I had to recuse myself, but I think it's a reference to CCC where they were applying for a parking waiver, and therefore different metrics could be used. Here, there's not a request for a waiver. It simply says that it meets the written requirements, which I think is really what we're supposed to look for. And along those lines, I've parked in Asian Gourmet. It's a popular restaurant that can be difficult to park in, and at times it gets a little awkward, but I've never seen a car on Main Street. I pulled in and had to wait for someone to pull out, and it's just the nature of, running a business and a restaurant. So, I've done that in West Concord Dunkin' Donuts, and I've done that at Starbucks like everybody else has. So I have not seen, Starbucks, I think, is the exception where stuff does back onto the street. And that, I think, is a failure of the person who's trying to park more than the lot itself. Because if you can't see a spot, you don't try to park there. You circle around or you do something else. That's just my take of it. I think if it meets the requirements, I don't think it's appropriate to ask more of them. Even if we're getting that recommendation that it might cause a problem later. That would just be my take.
Thank you. Rob?
Kind of to follow what Andrew just said, I kind of agree there, because the Dunkin's in Concord has two entrances versus this location, but we can't be dictating that kind of stuff, if they're meeting the requirement. Now, the challenge that I see here is, given where it's located, people are going to be going eastbound on 2 to turn into the Dunkin's, and then they're going to be coming out, and navigating that turn to get back onto 2 is going to be the challenge there. But I think, people are going to see the lot full. They're going to skip. They're going to go down to the one on further down at the gas station on Route 2. But I kind of just following what Andrew said. they're meeting the requirements, so that's all I have to say.
Actually, that brings up a good question, and I'm not sure this was answered previously. As of now, as it's set up, are you allowed to turn out and turn left to go onto, I mean, I know you physically can, but I know the two-way ends before that driveway actually starts. So I think technically that's the end of the two-way and you're onto the one-way, which is just the ramp. So is it still allowed to turn left out of that
There's no,
parking lot as it is now?
I think it's still two ways there.
I think it ends like basically right there. So this is maybe not a question for anybody that's on the board. I honestly don't
Nathan,
know.
there isn't a left, like a sign that says you can't turn left there.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's true. There would be probably MassDOT would have put a sign directly across.
That's right, through the
Okay.
chair. Yeah, this is Bob Michaud. That is a full access driveway, meaning that you can turn left or right. There's no restriction. And it's not an issue that DOT raised in our consultation with them. And that historically the restaurant has had full access to that location. So we're not changing any of the ground conditions or regulations that relate to the driveway.
Okay.
I can show the satellite map if anybody cares.
I had the Google Street Map up. That's what I was looking at.
Yeah, okay. It's sort of ambiguous, but you can squeak out.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's lots of things you can do.
Well, no, it's even ambiguous about whether it's legal, but I think you could argue it is.
Yeah. Okay, so we are not, this is still going to come back again to us, so, but I do want to, before we sort of leave this at this meeting, I want to basically take a straw poll, if I can, on the parking topic in particular in relation to the recommendation from the community safety officer. So just I guess a yes or a no, are you currently in support of that recommendation as being a condition in this or not? And I'll just run down the line. Rob?
No.
Mark?
No.
Andrew? Oh, maybe Andrew stepped away. Sue?
No.
Linda?
I think I'm on the fence.
Fair enough. And I don't think I am. I think I agree with the sentiment that they're meeting the requirement. And if the requirement isn't sufficient, then I think that's sort of.
We should change it.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, that's good to know, though. I just wanted to sort of hash that one out. That seemed to be more of a contentious one. Okay. So Elizabeth, do we know when this one would be coming back? Do we have a sense? I know we're talking about.
I leave it up to the applicant and their architect how much time they think they can pull the additional information regarding the lighting together. If they think they can do that in 2 weeks, it doesn't need to go to any other department or town staff. Then it can be continued to May 9th.
7:35.
Thank you, Heather. 7:35. Which you do have the 37 Lexington Road before that.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question before everybody moves on?
Go ahead, Mark.
Will we have clarification on the signage? I know Brian said it's not part of tonight's agenda.
Yeah, so Mark, thank you for raising that. I just wanted to go over what it is that we're going to do between now and the next hearing. And my list is Elizabeth's going to send us that utility relocation information, and we'll be looking at that. We're
I'm
going,
gonna be sending you an email with the contact person, Jeff Cosgrove, and then you and your engineer will just reach out directly to him.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then we are going to get something related to photometrics for Sue on that wall pack. So we have a better idea where the light is falling from the wall. We're going to look at and try and get you all the information you need on the building signage. And we're going to provide information from EVgo to sort of nail down the location of the EV space. So those are the sort of the three things that I have that we're supposed to do before next time. And
That sounds good.
that's very achievable.
The one thing I just quickly add, not that I focus on the EV part too much, but is if EVgo is a partner with them, I know they do a lot of DC fast charging, and if you do end up, having the power coming to the building being sourced from the pad transformer over on the side, that might be a good opportunity for aligning those things together. If the power is especially going to be going right past that one place that I recommended. If it's just a level 2, charger and it's 240 volt, I think you probably have everything you might need already where the light is going to be. So, but again, whatever you find out from that, that'd be great to hear.
Yeah, we will make that inquiry. Obviously, we can't control what they're gonna share with us and do with us.
Of course.
Yes. Yeah, so we're fine with the May 9th, Elizabeth.
All right. So then I think we need somebody want to make a motion to continue this to May 9th at 7:35.
I make a motion that we continue the application by Mark Pearson, MAP Holdings, LLC, for 794 Elm Street until the May 9th meeting at 7:35 p.m.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Thank you, Mark and Rob. All right, all those in favor, Mark,
Aye.
Linda,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
Sue,
Aye.
and did I already say Linda? Everybody keeps shifting around. Sorry.
Good.
Andrew,
Andrew, that's what it
Yes.
is. Thank you. And I'm also a yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a nice night. Yep.
thank
You
you.
too. All right, into our second, our 7:15 business public hearing related to 1134 Monument Street, parcel 1371-4-1. Back.
So the applicant did provide additional information to engineering, which prompted additional questions, issues, concerns. So the applicant has asked for a continuance to the public hearing to May 9th. And engineering and the applicant and myself, we will be meeting with them on Monday to try and resolve the concerns that were raised with the additional information.
I don't even want to know, but we are going to know. Okay. All right. I guess.
We need a motion.
We do need a motion, but I see a hand up from somebody who is not named or anything. I'm assuming that is not a hidden board member. Whoever that is that has their hand up, please unmute yourself and give your name and address. Or maybe it's an accidental hand raising. It is a call in. I'll give you a second. Going,
So,
gone. Okay.
so Heather, how do you,
It's *6 to mute and unmute from a phone.
okay. So if that's helpful.
Oh, there we go.
Ah,
Okay, sorry, I've never done this before, so it's all brand new to me. I missed it last meeting. I didn't expect this was going to go to the 9th. I missed the chance to make comments at the last hearing.
So can you
Sorry,
please
can you give your
state your
name?
name and address?
Peter Gifford, 1171 Monument Street, directly across from this project of at 1134. And since you're going to be pushing it to the 9th, I would like some things included to be discussed at that meeting, to give the engineers and whatnot a chance to put them together in the plan. Is that acceptable by you guys?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be quick with this. I hope that it's going to be a minimal flare on the driveway where it meets Monument Street. And
So I can tell you for the driveway flare is not a purview of the board. That is under the purview of Concord Public Works and their design roadway and design standards.
So the scenic roads bylaw doesn't even have any implication on that then?
No, it does not.
Okay. No entrance posts, piers, etc. I think that was discussed prior.
If you're talking about how the treatment of the end walls,
Yes.
so that needs to be shown on their revised plans, and I from what they've reviewed with the historical commission, no, there's no, granite posts or piers
No
or
piers or anything.
flares, or rounding of it's just the wall will end
Okay, I
like a
understand.
normal field stone wall opening.
And that I would assume, including the no use of a post lantern in that general vicinity near the street.
One has not been proposed. Oh, if somebody wants to put a post lantern out on the street, that would not be part of the scenic roads bylaw either.
Oh, interesting.
That only deals with the trees and the stone walls.
Okay. And I'm assuming, I think it was discussed that a certified arborist was going to be on site when they do the excavation for the driveway where it goes in between those two beautiful oak trees. Is that correct?
So I'm waiting for confirmation from the tree warden on how he wants those conditions specified.
Okay. The tree is already stressed, as we well know, at the trunk flare from the town plows trashing it during the winter. And I'm assuming the warden is going to ask for full trunk protection so that any big truck getting around the corner there isn't going to go scarf up the bark. Again, does that come under the auspices of the tree warden?
No, that is one of the conditions that has been reflected in engineering's current previous comment letter. The tree warden is requiring a stem and root protection zone prior to any work, and they will be required to meet with the tree warden out there to go over that. So that will be reflected as a condition.
Okay. And it's my understanding that the gas and the water can go directly under the driveway, not to either side, as was proposed, at least for the water service.
So after speaking with the water and sewer superintendent, they will not have the water main go under the driveway. It will have to be to the side so that they can gain access to it.
In case it needs to be replaced or something?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, and
What
also
is-
to gain access to the gate box.
Which would be out on the street,
Well,
more than likely,
if-
or at the very beginning.
right, but
where
if
they
if
generally
the
are.
water main has to go under, you're proposing it under the driveway, then the gate box would actually be in the pavement as well. And that's
Correct.
not,
Is there any reason why the water superintendent will not allow a 4-inch conduit to be put under the driveway through which the water line can be sleeved? to protect. I would think that would be an easy thing. I checked with National Grid as far as whether that's acceptable for the gas service, and they said absolutely.
That's a question I can pose to the water sewer superintendent. I don't know what their design standards and requirements are.
Okay. The electric cable, I think we discussed that. It was probably hopefully going to go off the existing pole that is inside the stone wall.
Yeah.
The electric service would come down off that pole and then go over to the residents.
Yes, that was part of the previous conversation. Yep.
And I would hope that the way that that line is put in the ground is way out beyond the drip line of the oak tree that it's nearest to. And if the contractor, the building contractor says, well, that's just going to cost too much money, what comes first, the tree or his money? I say it needs to go out and around, and I think that should be an order of conditions to minimize the impact on that tree. It's already getting trashed in the middle. Need to give it all due respect. That's the whole purpose of this scenic roads bylaw.
So as far as the utility line for a tree that's on the private property and how the utilities get underground, that's not part of the scenic road bylaw.
But aren't we trying to protect those two oak trees?
So for the electric line, that
Yes.
that would be on the opposite side of the wall on the private property.
Correct, but the roots of the tree that we're trying to protect obviously extend into the private property, and I would think that it would be a condition that would be mandated that the excavation for the electric service trench could go out beyond the drip line of the trees, that the roots that extend into the private part of the property. We're trying to protect the tree that's part of the scenic roads.
Well, sadly, that's not part of the scenic roads law. That only deals with the removal of a stone wall as it relates to roadway work, not utility work.
So why, not to be redundant?
So
but
this
why
is,
are we-
this is definitely beyond the scope of this project, and the applicant is just asked for a continuance. I'd be happy to meet with you and go over the sad limitations of the scenic roads law.
So, well, okay, I guess so. I mean, it's remarkable to me that because the roots of that tree, once they get onto private property, it sounds to me like the contractor, if he says, well, the shortest route between point A and point B is a straight line, which means we're going to just chop all the roots on that side of the tree.
No, I understand, but the scenic roads bylaw deals with removal of a
What are we trying
stone
to
wall
protect?
and disturbance of a tree as it relates to roadway work. And utilities are not covered under the scenic roads law.
Okay, well, I would like to meet so that I get more clarification. I don't want to burn up the time on the meeting now, but I really would like clarification on this. I mean, it's important to me. The environment's important. The trees are wicked important, and I think we're all kind of casting it off and saying, "Who cares?"
No,
so
I don't,
would
I'm not
appreciate-
saying that at all. And that's a very poor representation of my comments. My comments dealt with what is allowed under the scenic roads law as state law and what it specifically says. And it does
I
not deal
apologize
with
for my comment.
utilities.
Apologize for my comment, but I would appreciate more clarification, so at least I understand what grounds I have on which to stand.
Sure.
Important to me, obviously. But thank you all for your time, and I apologize for being completely deficient on the Zoom mechanisms.
No, it's all right.
idea.
We appreciate it. Appreciate your
Sure, I
input.
like trees more than Zoom. So, thank you very much. I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can make a motion, but do we need a time to continue it too?
7,
Yes, what did I
Oh.
say, Heather,
7:40.
No, I said 7:40. Yes.
Okay, I move to continue the scenic bylaw application of Bentley Building Corporation to create driveway access through an existing stone wall at 1134 Monument Street, parcel number 1371-4-1 to May 9th at 7:40 PM.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I
I'll
second.
second that.
Thank you, Rob. All right, those in favor?
Oh,
Sue,
Aye.
Linda,
Yes,
Rob,
Aye.
Andrew,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and again, did I say Linda? Linda, you keep
Yes.
moving around on here and I don't know why. All right, and I'm also a yes. Okay. On to meeting minutes for March 29th. And I saw that we did get a revised one that was sent around, was that earlier today. Did everybody get a chance to look at those or have any further edits or questions on the ones that were sent earlier today? All right, not seeing any. Does somebody want to make a motion to accept the minutes of March 29th? If not, I'll
Sure. Oh, go ahead.
I make a motion to accept the minutes, the meeting minutes of March 29th as written.
Second.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go with Linda first this time. Linda.
yes,
Mark,
Yes.
Sue,
Aye.
Andrew,
Yes.
Rob,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Okay, then we have,
I
last
think-
but not least, liaison and town planner updates.
So from a town planner update, we have received a grant from Mass Housing Partnership. And they will be assisting us with moving forward with the MBTA communities, doing the GIS model compliance, working with our GIS team, and also working to begin to develop zoning. And then we also received a grant from the Citizens Housing and Planning Association, CHAPA, on community engagement around the MBTA communities. So we will probably be looking to do within the first 2 weeks of June, just an MBTA communities 101 public forum, just to address questions, comments, get the right information and the right message out there. So we will be I will be working with the senior planner, Aaron Stevens, on putting together a dedicated web page where people can go and get information. And so that is starting to kick off. The parking RFQ, I'm waiting for feedback from finance just to make sure we have all the right elements. And then that should be going out. So hopefully we get back lots of quotes, and we have been able to allocate $10,000 towards it. So I'm hopeful that's probably not going to be sufficient, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. Then next we'll be I'm meeting with the sustainability director to ramp back up on the draft site plan rules and regs and get that going again. And then the last two items is the putting out an RFP for updating the subdivision rules and regulations. And then I'm finalizing updates to the tree preservation bylaw rules and regulations based on feedback from the land manager, Will Holden, and Heather Carey, and just, things we've experienced. So those are kind of all the back burner projects that we try and get done within the first 2 months after town meeting.
So just a few small things.
Yeah, good to know you're not busy.
It's all good.
Are there any liaison reports? Elizabeth, can I ask for town meeting? You may have already said this. There will be a spot reserved for the planning board like there has been in prior years, yes?
So
Really just 2 front rows.
yes, well, so last year they didn't have the first day of town meeting, they just had chairs, or table reserved for chairs of the various boards and committees. But generally the planning board does sit in the auditorium, front right side.
Yeah.
In case something comes up where the board needs to just chat amongst yourselves. It is expected that Article 33 will not come up until Monday night. But stranger things have happened.
Did you really mean the auditorium, not the gym?
No, aren't you guys?
Isn't
Oh,
the
yeah, you're
moderator
right.
always
She-
the auditorium?
yeah, she meant
or
the gym.
The
Oh, I
in the
meant the gym. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry,
Cool.
Jim. But there is quite a few things on the consent agenda, but who knows?
Yeah. Okay. Well, in that case, I look forward to hopefully seeing everybody there on Sunday. Except for Elizabeth, you don't need to be there.
Well, I will wait for the text, and I'll check in online periodically. So if you need me, I'm less than half an hour away. But
Okay.
I'm planning on seeing you guys on Monday night.
All right, if there is nothing else, not seeing anything from anybody, I think we can call this at 8:43, the meeting of April 25th, 2023. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you.